who played under the requirements that I played under and that Jimmy played under. I mean, Steve, excuse me, not Jimmy, but Steve played under. And so...
You made reference to the salary back then. 16.5 was when I entered back in 75. I mean, I drove a truck for UPS in the off season to make ends meet. I mean, the money and the salaries that they're making now is what, $430 or almost $450 for.
I mean, I don't begrudge the guys of the money they're making. I really don't. People may say, "Well, yeah, right." I mean, but people have to understand. It's almost like sending a kid into a candy store and he asks for the keys to the store, and they give them to him, and he's supposed to say no. I mean, looking at the A-Rod deal over the years where Hicks was bidding against himself.
Yeah.
I mean,
the money is not the player's fault. Well, you pointed out before, though, that we were in the infancy stage of the union, and the reason that the players are making as much as they're making is because of the union. And
That's right.
like I said, it was growing pains back then. I mean, Marvin Miller started from nothing as far as what and there was a lot of guys that weren't sure whether they wanted to do it because the owners were steadfast in locking out, and they were talking about calling up minor league players to play that weren't part of the union. So I mean. Like you said, myself included, do I need it? No, I'm working 3 different positions in life with jobs here. But would I like it? Absolutely. Would it make things easier?
These two guys are being far more gracious than I would. I'm going to give you some stats for you and your listeners. The average Major League ball player today is making $3.27 million. The 25th man on the bench riding the pines, as Steve just alluded to it, makes about $425,000. You look at this year's All-Star rosters. You got Ryan Howard, who just signed an extension for 5 years, $125 million. Matt Holliday, 7 years, $105 million. We, of course, already alluded to A-Rod. Now, no one's begrudging, like David said, no one's begrudging these ball players, these infinitely talented ball players, their money. But here's the thing, and David alluded to it earlier. Where is the respect for the men who paved the path for these guys to command their very generous paychecks? Do any of these guys even know that the men who played before them, men like Stephen and David, are being shabbily treated? I doubt it.
Yeah, that's one of the questions. I think you even brought that up in the book, Douglas, when you had your discussion with Steve, because Steve, I believe you mentioned you were unsure. I know your son Jason right now injured, but in the Cleveland system knows about it. I've spoken with him before about this subject and about you. But do you believe that there are a number of current Major League players who know about this and who actually care?
If they know about it, it's obscene. It's doubly obscene that they wouldn't want to help these trailblazers, these pioneers like Stephen and David who came before them. I can understand that they might be concerned about their share of the pie being diminished, as it were. But baseball is a $6.3 billion industry. Stephen and David are not asking for, these type of ridiculous salaries. They're looking for equity. They're looking really just to be treated as well as today's current ball players. I'll give you
What's interesting, talking to the Alumni Association, Dan Force is the president, and I talked to Hannah, who was instrumental in forming the Major League Players Alumni Association.
Jim Hannon, who on their website,
Jim Hannon,
by the way,
yeah,
it was his master's thesis that Marvin Miller studied when he first became executive director.
But the fact is that these guys they're saying that it was done the wrong way because there was a civil lawsuit filed years back and trying to say that it was discrimination, the fact that money was given to the former Negro League players that didn't have any kind of pension, and that players like us that were discriminated against, and a judge out in California threw it out. What I've heard is that he says, you guys should settle this on your own and do the right thing, was one of the things he said to those involved. But Dan Forster and they relate to us and me when I ask questions about it, that there's still a bitter taste in their mouth that we sued them for this. And, you say to yourself, well, how do you go about doing this if you're not doing the right thing on your own? Something's got to be done from some source to make it, recognizable to those that maybe can do something about it, or put a little pressure on those in charge to make them do the right thing.
How can you blame people, especially guys that are really in need of it, for keeping their mouth shut for over 20 years when they've been told, okay, we'll get something done, I mean, yes, in a lot of ways, we're no further along. I'll be flat honest with you. We're no further along, and I sit on a committee for the Alumni Association that's in direct negotiations with both Major League Baseball and the union. And so, on the one hand, we're really not any further down the road than we were 20 years ago. On the other hand, we are at least speaking directly to these people. So that is a little bit of progress, but I can't say it's a whole lot of hope at this point. But back to Jimmy's original question about today's player, do they really know? My personal experience has been, and Steve, having a boy still playing, might be able to answer it a little better than I can, but my personal experience has been, through what limited contacts I still have in the game, I can't tell you 100% for sure whether today's player knows about it or not. I asked of a particular player and rep in an organization if our issue was even mentioned at the player rep meeting last December. This was following our October 1st meeting in New York with both baseball and the union. And Major League Baseball has said that they want to help, and I think they're waiting on union help also. And so we wanted to make sure that maybe today's player knew about it. The best I can determine, it was mentioned at the meeting. But when I have tried to make direct contact with this particular player rep, I've been stonewalled. So I can't get directly to today's player and find out face-to-face what's going on. I don't mean to sound like I'm, totally negative or whatever, or that I have a lack of confidence in Dan Foster or any of these guys. It's just a matter of we've been told a certain thing for a long, long time. And I was born in Kansas, had a lot of kinfolk in Missouri, so I'm going to invoke the state slogan of Missouri. Show me. And so...
Jimmy, I wanted to just, come back to that original question of yours. There's a part of the book in which Darcy Fast, now Darcy Fast is the senior pastor at Centralia Community Church in Centralia, Washington. And to you and your listeners, he might also be known as the pitcher for the Chicago Cubs, who Leo DeRocher counted on in 1969, except he went to war. He fulfilled his military obligations, and then when he came out, after he did his pitch in the Army, he went to serve a higher calling. Well, Darcy Fast's grandchildren play ball with the children of Lyle Overbay. And Lyle Overbay, of course, is the talented first baseman for Steve's old team, the Toronto Blue Jays. Well, Lyle Overbay was asked point blank by Darcy's son, Christian, what do you think about this? What do you think about this issue? And basically, he said, I don't know what you're talking about. So, there are 30 player reps. I mean, we know a handful here in New York. Jeff Francoeur and Mike Pelfrey are the player reps for the Mets, Curtis Granderson and Mark Teixeira, the player reps for the Yankees. I think Hunter Pence might still be the player rep for the Houston Astros, and Troy Tulowitzki might still be the player rep for the Colorado Rockies. But
you know a whole lot more than what we've gotten from them.
Well,